All right, I hand it back to whoever.
Thanks, Brandon. So really quickly, I'd like to just go over the agenda for tonight. So Sam's going to give a bit of an overview, and then we're going to have some presentations from families and district staff. You can see it, the agenda's up here. So Jeff Boo from Oakland in the middle is going to be talking about some of the work that he's doing to promote our middle school options. We'll also have a presentation from Carmen Velasquez about some community outreach that's happening at Sinkofa United that could be a guiding light for some other ideas that to promote our schools. Amy Ferraris is going to talk about the Chabot enrollment pilot that was passed in the fall by the board and will be already accepting applications through this lottery process. And then we'll go over some proposed changes to the School Finder process that some folks use to identify schools. And we'll have a small group breakout discussion that we'll have facilitators for, so that people can have some more deep conversation. And then we'll come back, do a quick report out from the note takers in those groups. And then Jody Talkington from the central staff of OUSD is going to give us an update on the return to in-person instruction. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Sam to kind of ground us in what we're here for tonight.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Yeah, Sam Davis, representative to the school board for District 1, vice president of the board, and a parent at Oakland Tech. And so I just wanted to reiterate, in case some people just joined, I know this is a really controversial time in Oakland Unified. There's a lot of people who are very concerned about the reopening process, the return to in-person instruction. And so some people ask me, why are we having a forum about enrollment when the most important question about whether people will enroll next year is their concerns about whether it will be in person or not. And so obviously that is a concern. We will be addressing that at the end of the meeting. Another hot topic is we had a really controversial vote last night. Some people were very upset about how it went. It was a vote on the reparations for Black students resolution. I know that in the end, it got tabled to next month. And so I did just meet with OEA and we'll be, working with them and with the district on next steps. I do commit to having a full discussion of this at a forum in March. So we'll have our next of this series of forums will be on the reparations issue so that we can really try to get into it and figure out how to address the needs of our African-American students better. So I'm really committed to that and to getting something passed in the next month. So I do want to just talk a little bit in background about what is our current enrollment process. So in Oakland, we have a lot of choice when it comes to enrollment. You can use the existing enrollment process, the options process to apply to rank your school preferences within OUSD, or you can also enroll in charter schools. And for those who don't know about the options process, you have to submit the form. This year it was February 5th. The offers will go out on March 11th. And if you miss the February 5th deadline, you can submit a late application online. And, basically there's a preference at each school. The priorities are, as you see, first siblings, next students in the school attendance area, next the children of school staff and pre-K students at the same campus. Then any remaining spots are assigned by lottery. And there's a wait list at each school for families who didn't get their first choice. But, it's a great process, but it leaves a lot of students out, right? So there's a lot of families who don't keep track of the February 5th deadline. So they're, not prioritized. There's students in special education who generally get assigned outside of this process, usually. And there's families who arrive to Oakland mid-year, right? Whether they're refugees or transplants to Oakland. Options also make schools compete against each other, right? And it tends to concentrate students with privilege at some schools and students with high need at others. So a school can get a certain reputation, and racism and prejudice can play a big role in that, where sometimes families make false assumptions about a school because, of prejudice. They just see a high percentage of students of color and they make certain assumptions, because of racism. And So there are a number of ideas in Oakland for improving our enrollment process. One would be, changing the priorities to create more racial, socioeconomic integration and diversity at schools. Another one would be changes just to the school neighborhood boundaries. So, just trying to group people together and strengthen, there's some areas of Oakland where you're in one elementary school where you're a different middle school, and then right across the street, they're a different elementary school or the same middle school. And so, trying to make the maps more consistent. There's suggestions about having, preferences for students who are attending a feeder school as a way to strengthen feeder patterns. So for example, what if all the students who went to Westlake got some priority for a particular high school? Or what if all the students who went to Manzanita Seed and Manzanita Community School got a certain preference for a certain middle school? Because right now, often students from a particular school get kind of split up, and that is difficult. It not only tends to make people scatter, but it also disrupts the relationships between kids, which are really important, those transitions. There's the idea of helping schools to just connect with their community and to promote themselves. So you'll hear some of those ideas tonight, whether it's doing outreach to the neighborhood, to feeder schools, to preschools, and it's just so that families can learn more about the school beyond the false assumptions. So there's a lot of different ideas. One idea that, it didn't make it on here, but it's coming up to the board, and so you'll hear more about it tonight. It's saying we should separate our enrollment website from the charter school process, so that we're not using district's resources for a system that's separate from the district. So, and I know that's very controversial. So we're going to definitely hear some of that tonight. Some of the proposals or ideas of changing the enrollment system can have unintended consequences. And so I know people feel really strongly about this, and that's why we have the community agreements. Even if you disagree strongly with somebody, please just keep it respectful. And, another challenge in the conversation around enrollment and choice is the tension between having neighborhood schools and having integrated schools, because we live in a city with huge disparities between the flatlands and the hills. So anytime you restrict people's choice, you end up segregating them by neighborhood. But then anytime you have a system with choice, you also see competition between schools and people gaming the system. And so the unintended consequences can be really serious. If anyone heard the podcast, Nice White Parents, sometimes new initiatives can just focus on enrollment, but we also need to make sure we are maintaining and increasing support for students of color and low-income families at our schools. And that's very much what this reparations proposal is about, specifically for African-American students, but that's also true for all students of need. So there are no easy answers to any of these questions, and we just have to build up the trust in each other to be able to have some difficult conversations, because there's rightfully a lot of anger out there about how this has impacted people in the past along racial and economic lines. I just want to put that out there, because sometimes in these conversations we try to tiptoe around these issues, but that may not help us deal with them, because we are living in a city that is going through a lot in terms of gentrification and displacement. And so there aren't any easy answers. The enrollment changes are always controversial, so that creates a lot of inertia, but we need to push past that and make the changes that we can anyway, and see how we can improve things. So I'm grateful to everybody for taking the time to join us tonight and to have this difficult conversation. We are going to have, the small breakout groups after the presenters, and so a time for people to express their thoughts, and we'll get some good notes taken so that I can really hear from everybody. And we'll try and have some time for Q&A at the end. So with that, I just wanted to give all of that, background, and then I'll hand it back to Rachel to proceed from here.
Great. Well, I would like to pass it right over to Jeff Fu to talk about the Oakland in the Middle initiative.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for having me here tonight. I'm so excited to just have a short opportunity to talk about something really fun and dear to my heart, which is a new campaign that started last year called Oakland in the Middle. My name is Jeff Vu. I'm a former teacher and principal in OUSD in East Oakland middle school called Roots International Academy. And for the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of working on a project that is really all about kind of reframing the stories about middle school life, and the belief that, like as a middle school or a middle child myself, we oftentimes get neglected when really I think we really ought to be celebrated. And this in part is how we can begin including more and more voices from schools and get kids in elementary schools and families more excited about what we have to offer. So why don't we go ahead and jump in. As I was mentioning really briefly, you can go to the next slide, please. Oakland in the Middle was born in 2019 when, having left a site and role in OUSD middle schools, we kind of experienced firsthand how undersupported site leaders were around the subject of enrollment and recruitment. That on top of being academic and SEL coaches, accountants, and supervisors, we also had to be like marketing and recruitment gurus, which oftentimes is very time consuming, if not challenging, and requiring a whole nother subset of skills. So Oakland in the Middle, perfect, thank you, is an opportunity to kind of have a hub for our schools, an opportunity to market all of our programs and to be kind of on the ground celebrating the great things that we have going on with producing both student-facing and family-facing content. So we use a variety of avenues, both district resources and communication avenues, as well as all the free advertising programs we have out there, social media, the web, mailers. If any of you have fifth graders, hopefully you received some of our postcards this year. But just an opportunity to keep it live and to keep it fun and to keep it exciting, under the belief that we feel like we have a lot to offer. And in years past, where we've kind of, rested on our laurels, believing that our enrollment is somewhat guaranteed, we know that like every student, we have to fight for, and we have to prove to them that, we're worthy of their enrollment. So it's been a really exciting opportunity, especially as someone who believes we have a lot of awesome things going on to kind of showcase what we can do. So we can go to the next slide, please. We set out with a goal, having noticed a trend of declining enrollment, that we wanted to actually improve enrollment over the next 5 years, 10%. And this was through kind of targeted work that would get to the eyes and ears of students. This looks like celebrating what's happening in middle schools right now, whether that's middle school sports or middle school classrooms. For families, supporting the transition, this can look like having Zoom panels. Many of you may have heard of our virtual tour week that happened just a few weeks ago. But really, it's about demystifying middle school life. I've always said, like, at best, middle school is kind of a mystery, and at worst, it's like the nightmare of all of our, memories. So really creating a spotlight that's energetic and exciting for families and students is one of our primary goals. And then lastly, for our network, it's to kind of create a bridge between elementary schools and our middle schools, so that we can have just more of a relationship there, where we can have panels of kids, where we can provide tours, and where we can stay connected, knowing that our fifth grade teachers are really great ambassadors to our programs. And the last slide, we're excited to report that we've seen some pretty significant increases in enrollment. I think we're going to go 2 over now. Over the last year, we saw a 4% increase in enrollment, which was a huge boon in this last year. And it's something we're really excited about. And we really think it's because of all the touch points that we've made, trying to stay connected, but also recognizing that if one of our values is to be student-centered, then we want to create student-facing content, that we want kids to be excited. We want kids to be talking about what they look forward to, and recognizing that these schools and our classrooms are made for them. So that's just a little bit about the work we've been doing. I think that's the final slide that I have. I'm going to drop in the chat where you can find more information about us. We regularly produce YouTube videos, and we're on Instagram, and we're all the fun places, so you can look us up there. And I look forward to seeing you now and in the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And I will say, I'll put in a plug to go over to Oakland and to Oakland in the middle. There are some really fantastic videos of schools that maybe if folks haven't toured or seen, they're really great. So the next person who's going to talk to us is Carmen Velasquez from Sinkofa, who will talk about how families and school staff are reaching out to the community to encourage people to choose the school.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Sometimes my audio is like not great. Okay, cool. So I'm a parent at Sinkofa United. So basically, you know, we recently went through a merge with Kaiser. For some reason, I feel like a lot of people know about that. And so it was really great. And we're now Sinkofa United. And so our enrollment was low, you know, and so we did a couple of things to try and raise our enrollment, right? Because we like love our school, and we've been coming together with other Sinkofa families, have been coming together with Kaiser families and other families from the neighborhood to see what we could do to really kind of show everyone in Oakland, or as many people in Oakland, like how great our school was. And so with the help of like a bunch of parents who volunteered their time, we kind of put together a school video. Everyone submitted a video about what they loved about the school, what they were excited about. Through the PTA, we were able to fund lawn and window signs, you know, that's at Sinkofa United. We held virtual Zoom tours of our school, which is something that Sinkofa before it was Sinkofa United didn't do before. And honestly, it wasn't something that any of the schools that my children attended to before did. Frankly, it wasn't, I don't think I ever attended a school tour myself or my family. We just kind of went to whatever school was in the area. We did, something else that I did was I kind of was helping out our wonderful principal, Dennis, you know, who's been like working super hard and like going above and beyond. And we made a plan to reach out to preschools and daycares. You know, I created a flyer, a virtual flyer and a paper flyer, and I posted it and I hanged it around the neighborhood of Sinkofa neighborhood, some of the surrounding neighborhoods, West Oakland. I think I did a little bit of like the Lake Merritt area, and you know, we were able to increase enrollment. Like it was really successful, not like super successful, but it worked, right? And honestly, I have to be also honest with you guys. This is the effort of staff people at our school, like the principal, Erica, and like a bunch of parents who had the ability to volunteer their time to do this. You know, I had a really great job before I was laid off. So, and my partner has a great job where he still gets paid. He works from home. My children have both of their parents at home. So yeah, I wish I could say that this would work at every school, right? But it's not the same. You know, we're just lucky parents and family members that had time and the financial freedom to really get this going. I was offered a stipend from OUSD after I was already kind of involved. So yeah, I feel like I'm rambling. Amy, if I'm forgetting something, can you like chime in, help me?
You're not forgetting anything. I think the point that we want to make is that the school really rallied together to do a ton of legwork, and it took a concerted effort. Like the principal was in the PTA meeting saying this is a priority. We need to do this. We have to, you know, get our feet under us quickly. It's a merged school. Like a lot of the community has been threatened with school mergers and school closures. So it was a really concerted effort. But to Carmen's point, it was like a ton of work. She's being modest. It was mostly her work. And it was because circumstances allowed her to do that. So when we first talked about this presentation, we're like, we should enable any school that doesn't have a particularly high demand rate to do this. We should like make a stipend available, like have OUSD give school sites money so that they can pay for an enrollment website and yard signs, and like to give a parent some money to do some stuff to enable tours so the front office staff who's already overloaded can't do it. But, you know, Carmen rightfully pointed out, like even that might not be enough for schools that have primarily working class parents. So I'm hopeful that in our breakout sessions, we can do some brainstorming around what is the line between enabling parents to talk about their school and bring in their community versus the fact that it's not our responsibility to fill our school with students. OUSD, the district needs to take some ownership over that.
Thank you so much for that, Carmen and Amy. And I'm glad, you know, congratulations on your great work at Sinkofa United. The next person we're going to hear from is Amy Ferraris, a Chabot parent, who will talk about the enrollment pilot project at the school. That was with the goal to increase diversity there. So, Amy.
Hi, yeah. Hi, everyone. Like Rachel said, I'm Amy Ferraris. I'm a parent at Chabot. I'm in my 7th year being a parent at the school. So we, as of this year, Chabot is one of 3 schools participating in a pilot program to change the way we do enrollment. This pilot creates a new priority in the kind of pecking order and enrollment for students who live in neighborhoods where the median income is below $50,000. The goal of this pilot is to improve racial and socioeconomic diversity at the pilot schools, or to preserve it more at the other schools. It's supposed to last 3 years. We're supposed to review it once a year to see how it's going. The new priority for students who live in lower income neighborhoods comes after the priorities for siblings, in neighborhood students, and staff children. So it's not kind of interrupting the existing priority for neighborhood students. So that's what it is. For us, the background, you know, as we contemplated this and thought about participating, what kept coming up over and over and over again is like, this is so complicated and this pilot is tinkering. It's not the answer. Like there's potential things wrong with it. So I just want to put that out there from the very beginning. No one who is involved in any part of this sees it as like, okay, this is the solution to Oakland's enrollment issues. It was definitely more like, well, this is one thing we can try and watch and see how it goes. I also want to say, like, this came out of the work that the Equitable Enrollment Working Group was doing. So it was kind of brought and presented to the school board by representatives of the schools, but it definitely came out of that working group. And in addition to Chabot, there's 2 other schools who are participating in the pilot. There's Edna Brewer Middle School and Sequoia Elementary School. In the case of Edna Brewer and Sequoia, they are in neighborhoods that are rapidly gentrifying. So they are schools that have been very diverse and are slowly becoming less diverse, and they want to preserve the diversity they have. But then for Chabot, we are a school that is actually, relative to the rest of OUSD, is not super diverse. So for us, it was about improving diversity. Why Chabot? Let's talk a little more about that. Like I was saying, we're a little bit of an outlier within OUSD. We have a student population that is pretty white and pretty affluent. I would just draw your attention to, we have a really low percentage of our student body who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Over the past decade, it's been 12 to 18% of the student body. And this year, because of the pandemic, it's up to 25%, which is really high for us, but relative to the district as a whole, that's crazy low. Like, we are a school that where there's just a lot of concentration of advantage. So there's something to look at there. So that was one reason that we're interested. Like we're very much a school that demographically is different from the rest of the district. We're also a school that's relatively large. We have around 580 students, and typically only 50 to 60% of our student body lives in the neighborhood. So for a lot of us who have been there, it's like, why, you know, if we're drawing students from all over Oakland, why is our school still like very white and very affluent? What's at work there that's making that happen? So that's why we wanted to participate in the pilot, is to just kind of see what happens if we interrupt a little bit of the parent choice piece of that, and try to purposefully create a more diverse environment for the school. I think that's all my time. Thank you for listening. I'm excited for the small group discussions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amy. The last person we'll hear from is Sonali Mararka, the Director of Enrollment for OUSD, who will present some of the changes to the enrollment website that the school board will be considering.
Thanks, Rachel. Nice to see everyone from District 1 and other districts who've joined tonight. So as Vice President Davis mentioned in the beginning, there is a policy that is being considered by the school board right now that would do a few different things. It's called an enrollment stabilization policy. The first piece of it talks about trying to increase the marketing efforts, very much akin to what Jeff Vu talked about with Oakland in the Middle and what Ms. Carmen Velasquez talked about with Sinkofa United. And then the second part of the policy goes kind of under the header of no competing resources being used for other school systems. And that would do a few things, but one piece of that would mean that the current School Finder website, which I'll talk about in a little bit, is which currently allows a family to choose and explore schools that are both charter and district. It would mean that those should be separate. And so the School Finder website, which hopefully families are familiar with, it is at oaklandschoolfinder.org. It is a website that is currently jointly owned by the Common Charter School application that's managed by the Enroll Oakland team. And we have 2 reps from there here today. And so it's jointly owned by them as well as by OUSD. And the goal of the website is to allow families to search Oakland Public Schools a few different ways. They can search by address, or you can search by directly a school name if you have one in mind, or you can search by what's called a guided search, which asks for different kinds of programs you might be interested, like dual language or after school. And then what comes up is a list of schools. And you'll see here, this is a search based on an address. It's kind of hard to see. The first school that comes up is your neighborhood school, which in this case is Lincoln Elementary. And then after that, all district and charter schools are sorted by distance, kind of interspersed. So you'll see the second school on the list here is a charter school. So that's the current site. If you go to the next slide. And then the next slide talks about different options for how School Finder could potentially change. And so I think currently the intention of the proposed policy is really this first sub-bullet, completely separate the two, completely separate out district schools and charter schools and have 2 different search sites for families. But depending on how again, it's just a draft policy right now, depending on feedback, there could be other options that people might be interested in exploring. And so some of the other options that we are kind of exploring in terms of talking to the vendor about what's possible and costing out could be a single site that has maybe 2 different tabs for district schools versus charter schools, or a single site that has a filter button that lets a family say, I just want to search district schools, or I just want to search charter schools, or I want to search both. Or a single site that even more clearly kind of emphasizes a family's neighborhood school and really points to that as the first place that a family should consider. So these are, really this discussion is a little bit in the weeds, but this is definitely kind of a bubbling topic that a lot of people have opinions on. So we wanted to present kind of some of the options that are under discussion, and definitely for folks who are interested in giving feedback on this, would love to hear that in the breakout groups. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Sonali. So now we're going to transition into our small group breakout discussions. I think we'll have 15 minutes in each one. There'll be a facilitator and a note taker. And the two questions that would be, that we're going to talk about are what was most important to you and what you heard in the presentation. And what do you think we can do to improve enrollment, either at your own school or across the districts? I think Sam has the note, the information up, but the other thing that I think is just will help you if you have any trouble getting into your breakout group, and we'll assign it automatically. And then Brandon, are you still here to give another just quick reminder about the community agreements? I'm looking to see if he's still on the. I don't think so. I know he had to go, but maybe Sam, if you're able to, or maybe it's I'll click back.
Yeah, I can jump in. Just, I think it's a pretty respectful group, but sometimes things do get heated. And so just trying to stay respectful, trying to assume positive intent. I mean, not trying to, really doing it. And that's why we chose to have facilitators this time, because last time in the reopening schools discussion, there was some strong feelings expressed. So, definitely if we need to take a pause, take a breath, take a step back, slow things down, that does happen sometimes in these conversations, but I hope it won't be any kind of issue. And I think the other big piece is just to make sure that everyone's taking a turn, so the facilitators can make sure that people are each getting a turn to share. So we're sharing out the time. We're not as big as we might have been tonight, so I think it should be pretty doable in 15 minutes. And if there's nothing else, I think, Yael, you want to send us away? Oh, good.
On the SSC at Emerson. Heather has been the principal at Emerson for the past 7 years, and Erin, I think, works with CCSA. So some of the conversation was, Heather came in late, so she wasn't there for the presentations, but the questions centered around School Finder in terms of Jeremy and Erin, and concerns about separating, parents not having access to the data and what that meant. And then also for schools in terms of the impact on the schools, if parents say have their kids enrolled in multiple schools, some charter, some in district at the beginning of the school year, that it means that there's less stability and predictability. What Heather really lifted was her experience as the principal at Emerson, and the fact that over the last 3 years, they've been growing, that before then the enrollment had been declining, and that one of the things that she felt has been working really well for the community is that growth has been slow, that she looked at what Sinkofa has done and was really excited and inspired by it. And she felt like the slow growth was actually helpful to the community in terms of making sure that people who were coming into the community really felt like, this is my community, like this is where I want to be. And we got cut off as she was starting to explain that further. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Amy and Saran.
We're both still typing notes. Yeah, great. We had Andy in our group who's on the enrollment working group, and he shared out the results of a survey that they did. And he talked about the need to define what is a quality school. Like, it's not necessarily test scores. We talked about how it's not like the amount of money spent per student, but what their survey showed is that parents are looking for like specific services or specific environments. We need to find a way to lift those factors up when we give parents information to consider about each school. We also heard that the enrollment office actively discourages some parents from going to specific schools. And I see a bunch of people nodding, which scares me. And we talked about appreciating the Chabot proposal, but being a little bit worried about it's easier to focus on bringing students into high demand schools. What does that do to the schools that the students are moving away from?
Thanks, Amy. And last, Sonali.
Thanks, Rachel. We had admittedly not the most diverse group of perspectives. We had 3 folks from the charter sector, Kimmy Keene, Eileen Alderette, and Lisa Givens-DeGack, but we had a great conversation. There was a lot of celebration of the great work that Jeff Vu is doing and the Chabot pilot. I don't think folks knew a ton about that beforehand, and we're really excited about both those and lifted that up for sure. We definitely talked quite a bit about the proposal from President Gonzalez around School Finder, and I think echoed a lot of what other folks have said in their report backs, some of the concerns around how that negatively impacts families, how that could negatively impact families in terms of making them go to 2 different places to find schools, and talked about sort of prioritizing access to quality above all else for families. And then we also talked a little bit about how enrollment can feel like a zero-sum game between different schools and different ways of thinking about how to kind of reduce that tension. Anything else I missed, Rachel? Okay.
Great. Okay, so glad we had some good conversation. We're a little bit behind, so I want to pivot quickly to the reopening update from Jody Talkington, who's the OUSD Director of Strategic Projects. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to highlight a few things, and then I'm happy to take some questions, and definitely anything that I myself don't have the answer to, I will take down the question and get the response from other staff so that Sam can email this group out. But what you see here on this slide, oh, the boxes again. Yep. Okay. That's Zoom. A couple updates. First, the safety and facility readiness dashboard. I think at one point it was called COVID readiness dashboard. So it's got an updated name, safety and facilities readiness dashboard, and updated information. If you click on this dashboard, you can now see school site by school site readiness for different things, like are the filters there? You see a blurry description here, but are filters installed? Are signs up? Do they have the PPE? Things like that were required by the county and state, the measures we're supposed to have in place in terms of getting our facilities ready for a return to more in-person learning. And then the update, hopefully, especially parents have seen of TK through 5 has seen this preference form. We're asking all parents, and the link is there if you have a link to this deck, to submit this form for your preferences for in-person learning. It's due on March 2nd. So this is part of the information that we need to be able to create site-specific plans for returning. Every school site will have a different plan based on factors, pre-existing conditions of teachers or families, and also the preferences for families of returning to more in-person options, because we plan to continue to have a distance option as we move into hybrid learning, whenever that date may be. As we don't have a specific date for opening hybrid learning at this point, we continue to watch the guidance from the state and the county. We're looking at case rates. That's this kind of the state guidance. And I don't know if you've been keeping up on it, but case rates have been dropping at a pretty steady pace. So we may even be in the red tier coming in a few weeks if nothing crazy happens, which is always possible with this virus, right? And then also we continue just to prepare our learning and getting as much information as we can. We're researching different hybrid models in other states. The CDE also posted different hybrid models. So we have a team of folks researching those, looking at pros and cons. So that's all the things that we are doing to prepare for in-person learning. We're also looking at an expansion of hubs at school sites. We have some learning pods, like smaller pods happening at different school sites, primarily focused when they started on serving students with special needs and unhoused supports. I know there's Sinkofa teacher here and they have a hub. I heard a great from the principal there about their learning hub, how they really targeted students whose attendance was low and found out that a large percentage of the low attendance were students who were unhoused. So they were able to provide the in-learning support where they still attended class on Zoom with their teacher, but they had breakfast served to them in the building and other kind of basic needs. So that was given, you know, in the social distance way with PPE and following all the safety guidelines as well. So I think I will pause there. I know, Sam, there was also a commitment from the board, a letter from the board last night about doing everything we can to return in person. So I don't know if you want to share about that, but I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, so that was a letter that was released and it's on the website. Try to find it real quick. It's on OUSD, but just saying, you know, the intention of the board is to reopen in mid to late March, and so see it earlier today. Of course, now I can't find it, let's see. Anyway, I can send it out later, but it does.
Sorry. I'm seeing some questions. I'm seeing some questions in the chat, but do you want?
But just to make it clear that we're prioritizing for elementary opening K through 5, ideally by mid to late March, and then there's obviously questions about middle school, high school, what's going to happen. That's still not clear. And obviously everything is subject to bargaining right now. So there is an intention to kind of move ahead and you know, set some clear expectations and deadlines. But there is obviously the variable of trying to figure out what's going to happen with the negotiations. But you know, case rates continue to decline, vaccine rates continue to increase. So we're very hopeful that we might be in the red tier in a week or two.
I'm just looking at a couple of questions here. Great question from Nita about ensuring that families, for the second thing about that return to work, how we're ensuring that families who may not have easy access to technology actually are able to fill out the form. I do know that we are having affinity group meetings around medical safety. And so that's one way we've tried to really reach out to different, like in different languages and to support in that way. And I know this question has come up with the senior leadership team and also the implementation team. And so I can get back to you even more on both saying this is a request we heard from the community, make sure we're doing this, and then also to share what the strategies we've been doing. So I'll get that from staff and hopefully, especially since it's due on March 2nd, to share what we've been doing for that. What happens if Alameda County falls to less restrictive tier permits if the district agree to an MOU with OEA? So I believe the intention is always to follow the county and state guidance and work with our labor leaders to have a plan to come back. That's what we all want to have happen, knowing that our labor leaders are really thinking about the impacts on students as they go through the OUSD plan. And also at this current point in time, I believe the proposals for the OUSD put forth are also posted on the website, so you can see that. And that we're waiting for an updated, I believe the MOU that we had expired February 12th. And so we're looking for a revised one to move forward. Sorry if I'm not answering that totally specifically. I'm trying to be really careful about labor rules and what I can share. And then, do you have any idea how many teachers got vaccines so far? So this is another thing district doing to facilitate teachers getting vaccinated. So this is something also that we were a bit frustrated with. At the beginning, we were waiting on information from the county about vaccinations and how they were expecting school districts to support with that. And at first we were told to not share information completely broadly because they wanted to make sure certain sites were reserved for families with limited access and didn't get inundated with folks who could get the vaccine through their healthcare providers. And so we were measured and waiting for permission. And then all of a sudden we heard the state gave out codes and everybody was going everywhere. And so it does seem sort of like a free for all now. But we have heard quite a bit of teachers getting vaccinated. We're also trying to create a tracking system that's aligned also with labor and HR so that we can have a better idea of who is vaccinated, just to have that information. So we're building out a database for that. And then I know teachers are doing an excellent job of sharing codes. I guess there's like updated codes for being able to get your vaccine at the different places around Alameda County. And there's texts and different emails about getting teachers the codes. But I will say it is a very complicated process. I myself,
let me just jump in and say a couple of things, because I just saw a news article right before joining saying that, you know, the state has designated 10% of vaccines each week for teachers, and they are now starting to release those codes, and they are prioritizing teachers in districts with high numbers of students of high need. So, you know, that would be Oakland, except that one of the restrictions is it needs to be teachers who are scheduled to go back within, I think, 21 days back to work. So I think there's a question of how that will be, and sorry, I shouldn't have said teachers, I should have said educators, school site staff, people who are working with students, whether in person at a school site or bus drivers, or, you know, anybody who would have contact with people as a result of being an education worker. So sorry, I should have been clear about that. And one of the issues is, you know, Kaiser is actually our insurer, and so, or insures a lot of employees of the district, but they have not had as many vaccines, which is why we're relying on the state system, which is unfortunate, but that's just the reality of how the vaccine rollout has happened. The one other thing I wanted to say, I saw a question that was just a direct message to me. I just wanted to say it in case people joined late. So, you know, there was also some controversy last night, completely separate from the reopening question, but around the vote for reparations for Black students. I voted for an amendment, and people were pretty upset about how the vote happened. And so I'm trying to get more information about just the communication that led up to that happening. So I did meet with OEA this afternoon, and we're going to have another vote. The whole resolution ended up getting tabled, unfortunately, to the March 24th meeting. So my next forum will be on the topic of reparations for Black students, just getting into the details of the resolution and what the progress has been and where we're at. So just for people who had questions about that. But I have been talking to OEA this afternoon to try and clarify what happened. Were there other questions, Jody, that you wanted to address, or was that?
I just want to say, I see the questions about the timeline for the MOU, and I don't have that specific information. I know everybody's working toward coming to an agreement as soon as we can on both sides. And then there was another one here about, distributing students, spread students and families with most needs at schools with lower concentration of need. And Rachel, were you saying like in person or opening hubs? Is that what you mean? Like students?
I mean, I guess it comes more from the fact that that like places with, who have, like Sinkofa United is a good example of like kids who are unhoused there are more of them. And so in order to accommodate, I just worry about places where there's more, for example, unhoused or newcomer, people who struggle with their internet, that there are schools where there are more of those kids and they will be unable to attend Learning Hub full time. And there are other schools probably concentrated in D1 in the Hills, which is not as convenient. so I guess I think it's complicated. I mean, I think I would assume that it's complicated to change people's schools, but I think it's something that worries me about site-by-site planning, is that it just feels like it'll just be inequitable, especially with outdoor learning spaces that are able to happen at some schools and not others.
Thank you for that comment. Yeah, I think that's something we should definitely be watching out for. And I think once things, especially when we see who's coming back, parents and families, I think we'll have to take a look at how it's landing in equity. And we'll continue. I'm sure the board will ask for regular updates. The superintendent gives an update every board meeting in her SUP report on where we're at. And that's the kind of thing we should be tracking. So I'm glad that you're bringing that up.
Well, I want to, I'm seeing some appreciations. Oh, there's a question. Has the superintendent attended any bargaining meetings with OEA? I believe she's planning on meeting with them in the next couple of days. Is that right?
I believe that was the plan, to have more staff attend. And I know she's attended in the past. I don't specifically know her schedule on that. I can also find out, or maybe Sam and I can ask her and get back to you on that too.
Well, I'm losing my, sorry, it was a late meeting last night. I'm losing the ability to speak, but I'm very grateful for Jody and for Rachel, your facilitation, and for all the note takers and facilitators, and appreciate all the kind words that are coming in over the chat. So thank you all so much. And thank you to, I know Jeff had to leave, but thank you, Carmen and Amy Ferraris and Sonali, for your presentations. And it was a really great discussion and much needed, just sharing of ideas and, goodwill across different school communities. So I appreciate you all for participating. And yeah, the next forum will probably be a little more controversial and exciting. So look for that coming up.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sam.
Everybody.
Thanks,
bye, everybody.
community.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night,
everyone.
Good night. Bye.
Good night.